Boss Rush 940 day 1. So make sure you set your slider up. We've got a new week here, so don't get stuck on a lower boss rush accidentally. We have a very difficult day 1, and we have Garrosh Hellscream as the first boss, which is a boss we've never had as the first boss before. We also have a Zoth cleanup afterwards. So Garrosh is difficult for a variety of reasons. There's 4 enemies in play, so when you bounce, only 3 enemies will come back out, and 1 gets stuck on the bench, so if you do like an AoE freeze, it doesn't hit everything. The 4 enemies also means that Belinda plus Murloc Holmes to go for triple freezes doesn't really work because your water elemental's not lined up properly against the enemies. There's also a ton of shadow and melee damage coming at you on this fight, so you can't just like root everything. There's also a red shot ad that causes divine shields on all of the other allies whenever they take damage, so you basically lose half your damage until that red shot ad dies. And Garrosh has pretty high base health, it's like 290 or something, so his health is pretty high, and then you have Anomaly on top of that. So even with the Deathwing Rattlegore comp, you're going to need a bit over 200 Destroy All life damage, and you're going to lose several of your lives on your Rattlegore on turn 1 because they do so much damage, so you don't get as many activations of Destroy All life because of that. So pretty unforgiving day, and you actually need more than 200 by a fair amount if you want to guarantee to kill Garrosh on even the very high health anomalies. So the combo I'm using here is Arfus with Downward Dog, Jaina with Ice Block Talisman, Rattlegore with Rattling Bones, Deathwing with Resolve Undying, Band of Frost on Varden, and Gilnean Strength on Genn. And you can also use Rogers in that Varden slot. Rogers' equipment is a bit of a double-edged sword, so if you run the Scout Spyglass, you will kill off the spawns of Zoth whenever Rogers swings, and that includes the swings into your own mercenaries from Mass Hysteria. It's nice to kill the spawns, but it also means that Mass Hysteria is going to swing into Zoth more frequently because you don't have those low attack enemies as a buffer, as additional targets for Mass Hysteria. If you run the Swashbuckling Sash, you ramp attack on Rogers quicker, which means that your Mass Hysteria swings will do more damage to yourself when Rogers hit your own units or when your own units hit Rogers. That also means you're more likely to kill your Genn taunts quickly on those Mass Hysteria swings, which means that anyone that swings after Rogers is more likely to swing into Zoth because you've killed your taunts off quicker. So if you are having trouble surviving, I would say skip both of these equipments and either run the ship spell or no equipment on Rogers. If you are able to survive with that higher damage, you can kill Zoth faster by running one of these equipments, either the attack ramp or the Scout Spyglass to clean up those ads. But yeah, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. Also with Varden, you only have 1 artillery strike merc, so if you don't hit that artillery strike, you can sometimes still win the fight, but you're going to have a Mass Hysteria that swings into the big version of Psychus, and you're going to need to hit Frost Ritual to even have a chance. That Mass Hysteria, the Psychus has 295 attack on 940, so you would need to hit no attack anomaly on the red, and then your Varden and your Genn would need to have at least 296 hit points for you to have a chance, and you would still need the Frost Ritual. If you hit treasures on Rattlegore and Varden, then you would have a high chance to hit Artillery Strike on the next treasure roll. But if you hit treasures on like Varden and Genn and you hit Frost Ritual and miss Artillery Strike, you should probably just re-roll, because your odds to hit the Artillery Strike then after that fight are only going to be like 20%. So it'd be faster to just restart the fight at that point. So a lot of requirements. But if you meet all the stat requirements, it's pretty easy. The Zoth fight just takes a little bit and still has some RNG if you don't hit your Artillery Strike and your Frost Ritual. So if you hit Artillery Strike but no Frost Ritual, then you can still potentially lose if your Varden or your Genn swings into a high attack anomaly in Zoth and dies to that swing on Hysteria on turn 1. So a lot of conditions, very challenging fight, and on the stat requirement at least. So on turn 1 here, we're going to start with Arfus, Jaina, and Rattlegore. We're just going to put all our damage into the Shah, because if you shoot into Garrosh, it's just going to activate this Divine Shield passive, and you're going to lose damage anyway. And any damage on the Shah means the Shah dies quicker, which means Divine Shields stop on Garrosh, and your Destroy All life combo quicker. So you're just going to put everything into the Shah. If you know you have enough Destroy All life damage, you don't have to act with Rattlegore or Jaina on this turn. But that's only for people that have invested very heavily in Deathwing already. Your damage requirement is basically Garrosh's health plus about half of the Shah's health, since that's how much damage you'll deal to Garrosh before the Shah dies, and you'll have your damage cut in half until that point. It's in that ballpark anyway. So on turn 2, a lot of times Jaina will be slowed, but not always. If Jaina's not slowed, you could get another shot here, but we're slower than 8 speed, so Jaina's kind of useless here. You can shoot with Rattlegore on the Shah again if you need the damage, and then just destroy all life. And I'm going to restart the client here, but I'll let you see how this goes a little bit. So, as you can see, we're activating Divine Shields with every other destroy all life. So we're losing half of our damage until the Shah dies. And then once that dies, these Divine Shields will stop, and we'll get our normal damage on Garrosh. So I'm going to restart the client here. And we should just be logging back into Varden, Genn, and Rattlegore collecting treasures. And we really want both Frost Ritual and an Artillery Strike. And if we hit only one and then a Rattlegore treasure, then we could still potentially win the fight, but it gets more difficult if that happens. So let's see what we get here. And we missed. So this one I would just re-roll every time. Even if we hit the treasure here on Varden, it would have not been worthwhile. So let's just do another run here. It's pretty quick to do the resets with Deathwing Rattlegore at least. Alright, just killing off our Arfus. I think I have enough damage that I could not act with these, but it doesn't take too much extra animation time, so without doing the math, I guess it's worth just shooting. You can see how absolutely brutal this fight is if you try to fight it normally. Like 1500 shadow damage on turn 1 or something insane. So in this case, I don't have a slowed Jaina because we just ice blocked and everything, so we get the second shot here. It's going to restart the client. I guess the no slow on Jaina happens when Desecrate one-shots Jaina, and then you don't get any shadow shocks because she's immune. So everything hits Rattlegore. Okay, hopefully better treasures this time. Let's see what we got. On Artillery Strike. Out of these, this can clean up the spawns of Zoth so that your flurries can hit Zoth more reliably, so that's pretty nice. This one can also provide targets for Mass Hysteria and also add some decent damage, so Bullet Bones is pretty good. Let's take the Thunderclap here. And we missed. So let's go one more time. This time for sure. I would say Icy Arrival is probably the second best treasure on Varden if you hit an Artillery Strike. Since at least you would get the turn 1 covered, which is the riskiest part of the fight without Frost Ritual. With how much treasure RNG there is, even though the fight's pretty long with Genn and Rogers, I did beat it with that as my first run, and it might be my preferred method over this, just because the treasure odds are so much better. And as long as you have the stats, you should win pretty reliably. Okay, just doing a little restart here.
There you are! Everyone's excited to see you take the spotlight.
Come on, artillery strike. Alright, there we go. Alright, so no Frost Ritual or Varden Treasure. I don't think any of this really matters too much. These AoEs are kind of useful for cleaning up spawns if you do want things to hit in a Zoth. Like a flurry. You can AoE the spawns and then flurry afterwards. So we do have a risk of losing our mercenaries on turn 1 here to this Mass Hysteria if they swing into N'Zoth. So I'm going to not flurry because I want these spawns to soak these Hysteria hits. And obviously we do not want to AoE either. Okay, that's good. Alright, that's fine. Alright, so now we can Cold Snap on these Mass Hysterias and make as many summons as we can, because those are going to absorb Hysteria hits for us. And you want to position with Genn on the right so that these things act last, because it basically goes in play order for your actions here. So for Psychus, we can let Psychus summon. I don't need to freeze that, so I'm just going to flurry. And we can do the AoE before the flurry. That way all the flurry shots hit N'Zoth here. And then we should be able to Cold Snap next turn. It's also helpful if you do at least 100 damage with your Bone Flame. Because that way your Cold Snap will actually damage N'Zoth instead of being immune. So I want to do that and then Cold Snap. And we're going to get another summon here. You can also use this Beastly Beauty to help out your Bone Flame if you don't have quite that much damage. If you do that, it's good to have your Bone Flame get the killing blow, so it does get that little bit of damage ramp. So you don't want to swing with your Beastly Beauty first. I don't have Cold Snap this turn, but I do have Ice Lance, so I can stop this Hysteria. I could AoE. I'm just going to do this, though. And then we should have a Cold Snap again next turn. But I don't have to use it. So if it's just Psychus, I'm just going to Flurry and save the Cold Snap for Hysteria. So I'm going to AoE with the Flurry. And I'm just letting these guys ramp up their stats so that they're very healthy. And then I can start swinging with them later if I have enough hit points on them. Okay, so we got a Hysteria, so we want to Cold Snap that. So I'm going to kill this, and then cast a Cold Snap. And then that should shoot after the Cold Snap. Okay, I could freeze this so that we don't get Hysteria next turn while unable to act. And we do have a Cold Snap again, so I'm going to go ahead and freeze it. I'm going to kill off this weak one and make another one. Okay, Psychus is fine, so I'm going to do a AoE Flurry. And this is why either the Book of Destruction or the Thunderclap, as long as they do at least 15 damage, are pretty nice choices on Rattlegore. Because otherwise those flurries would be hitting a lot of those spawns on those turns. Okay, we're going to do a Cold Snap. And I guess I can... So if I swing with this after Rattlegore kills this, it could hit one of the spawns instead of Zoth. So I'm just going to shoot with Genn instead of trying to get another resummon. And you could also think about transforming Genn at this point. Okay, we got a Hysteria, so I'm going to Ice Lance that. I'm going to go ahead and transform Genn. And I could also swing with these. If you have Frost Ritual, using these like buffed up guys to get extra Frost activations is pretty nice. You probably would have already killed the boss by now with Frost Ritual though. Okay, Psychus. I'm going to do an AoE and a Flurry. And we can go ahead and smack him with Genn. Okay, so we're going to kill Psychus and then do a Cold Snap. And we can swing with Genn as well. This should be a kill here. Alright, and none of this should matter since we already have Artillery Strike. I guess the Artillery Strike requirement's also pretty high since you have Avalanchan as one of the last two bosses with 360 HP on a red. So, very heavy stat check for today. But yeah, I think I kind of prefer the Rogers Genn lineup for this day just because the treasure odds are a lot better. And I didn't really have too much trouble beating the Zoth with that comp, it just took a little while. But this is... I would call this a one and done day. I would not attempt to farm this day. It doesn't seem worthwhile at all. 17 turns. It took me like 30 turns to beat it with Rogers, but I think I could have done it a bit faster. But I'm not going to run it again with that. But it is a viable comp, and that was how I did my first run, was with Rogers. So that's 940 day one, and hopefully we get a better one sometime soon on this week, and good luck on your runs.